Hello everyone, welcome to The Remarkable World of Trees. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes, just going to give people a little bit of time to join. Can see we've got lots of people here already, which is lovely. Just going to give people a little bit more time to join before we get started. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's lovely to have you all here. Tonight we're going to be hearing from Kate Bretherton, who's going to be talking about her upcoming exhibition, The Remarkable World of Trees, which is going to be exhibited at St Albans Museum and Gallery later this year. We're doing this as part of SustFest in Albans because Kate's exhibition obviously has so many important links to the natural world of St Albans, so we're really excited to hear from her and her insights on the remarkable world of trees. We're going to be hearing from Kate, and then at the end we're going to have a chance to ask her some questions. So if you have any questions for Kate, please do put them in the Q&A box. If you have any technical issues, please put them in the chat, and I will be in the background ready to help you with any of those. So I really hope you enjoy this evening, and I'm going to pass over to Kate.
So I'm going to try and share my screen. Yeah, I'm pressing the screen button and the presentation, and I'm in the slide, and we're going from the beginning. So has it worked? I hope so.
Yes, it has.
It has. So how did I come to want to put on an exhibition about the remarkable world of trees? The answer starts with the ways in which I have found myself fascinated by trees. And these ways fall under three headings: delight, amazement, and enjoyment. Now, my awareness of trees only really started when I learned that a man called Paul Arnold had, in the 1970s, planted some trees for their historical connections. Here is Paul in a boiler suit with his back to us, supervising one such planting. And if you don't know which tree he's planting and what the historical connection is, you must come to the exhibition to find out. Now, Paul's plantings are good stories, and I decided to write them up. The trouble was, I didn't know one tree from another. So when told that a walnut tree had been planted in St. Peter's churchyard to commemorate one Nathaniel Cotton, I had to look up what a walnut tree looked like. So here is Nathaniel Cotton and his grave in St. Peter's churchyard, and the leaves of the walnut planted to commemorate him. Now, again, I hope you are agog to learn why a walnut tree was chosen to commemorate Cotton, and will come to the exhibition to find out. Now, one of the clues as to which tree is a walnut is that the leaves smell of boot polish. So you would have seen me wandering through St. Peter's churchyard, crushing and sniffing as I went. I found I was delighting in looking up into the trees. Then, for my children's books, Donato Trinicolo and I set out, he with his camera, to photograph a selection of trees and the 6 clues to their identity. Now, we started with the larch. Larches were easy enough. There's an iconic set of them in Verulamium Park, growing on top of the Roman wall. There were 4 of them then, alas, only 3 now. Now, what would large flowers look like? That's one of the clues, obviously, to the tree's identity. We didn't know. Not very exciting, we thought, not a large flower. We certainly didn't expect them to be red. we found that the female flowers, strictly baby cones, not flowers, are like little raspberries. The male flowers, they too should be called cones, not flowers, are tiny. Can you see the green scented discs on the twig in my hand? They are a nest of developing pollen sacs at this stage. They look like a nest of emerald frog spawn. Later, they don't look much, tiny tufty thing. At the exhibition, you'll see Donato's photographs of the developing cones. Donato also photographed the leaves. Then he zoomed in on the twig that the leaves were on, and he shared the image with me. The pattern is exquisite. We couldn't but be delighted. So much for delight. What about amazement? I realized gradually just what an amazing job trees do. At one tree warden conference, John Stokes pointed out that trees are part of the solution to every one of our UK environment priorities. Clean air, clean and plentiful water, thriving plants and wildlife. So all of these trees are part of the solution. Reduced effects of flooding and drought, sustainable resources, public engagement with nature. Interesting that that's a priority. Climate change, minimizing waste, managing exposure to chemicals, enhancing biodiversity. Now, I shan't go into it now, but the exhibition will address the role that trees play in each of these issues. Come and see. I shall give you one of my other amazement moments. With employment in such turmoil, so many people unemployed, and so many of us reconsidering what we want to do with our lives, I want in the exhibition to explore some tree-related outdoor work. And to this end, I commissioned a video interview with Donato as to whether or not you could make a living out of hedge laying. Donato Cinicolo, by the way, is not only a professional photographer and graphic designer, but 15 times Hertfordshire hedge laying champion. Now, one of Donato's trainees is this chap Stuart. He's a graphic designer, but has decided he doesn't want to spend all his time in front of a computer screen. I won't steal the thunder of the exhibition. His story tells us a lot about how important our work is to our well-being. The point here is that I went where they were laying the hedge. I realized the reality of the job that hedge is doing for us. We hear reduces runoff. We hear filtering pollutants, diminishing gene pool, soil erosion, carbon sequestration, wildlife habitats. Here I could see the hedge doing all these amazing jobs. And that's what the exhibition can do. Let people see the jobs that trees and hedges do. The hedge is across a hill. The hill rises quite steeply above the hedge. As I looked up at the farmer's field, I could see new shoots of a crop. There was not a weed in sight. The farmer must have used chemicals to get rid of the weeds. Can you see the river below? In heavy rain, which climate change forecasters predict will be more frequent. Sorry, let me have a drink. Sorry, the forecasters predict will be more frequent. The runoff will pick up those chemicals and wash them down the hill. But the hedge is there to slow the runoff and to filter the chemicals from the water before it gets to the river. The slower water runoff will also mean more water soaking down into the aquifer rather than being carried away. by the river to the ocean. I want people to see in the exhibition all that reality, as I did. What this chap, Alex, another of Donato's trainees, loved about hedge laying is the wildlife habitats he was creating. See, once laid, the hedge foliage will grow back vigorously and be dense cover for members of every kingdom of wildlife. By the way, we had to do this filming on the very last day of February because you can't do hedge laying after that because of bird nesting might be disturbed. So we are already for the exhibition making birds and butterflies and spiders' webs and small mammals to be seen in our exhibition hedge. I shan't steal the exhibition's thunder. Here's just a start. So once laid, Donato's hedge will be that corridor of woodland. From the copse of trees you can just about see in the distance. And the patch of ancient woodland that the hedge connects to out of sight in the other direction, sort of behind us, so to speak. A patch of ancient woodland, which means a limited gene pool for the creatures in it. I could picture a little girl hedgehog setting out boldly into the hedge, leaving its family in the ancient woodland, hoping to find a mate that wasn't her father or her uncle or her brother. And perhaps from the copse at the other end would come a young hedgehog gallant looking for a mate that wasn't his mother or aunt or sister. It's called widening the gene pool. We all know about that. Well, here I could see it. A mature oak is just out of sight behind us too. It's close to the hedge. Now this isn't that mature oak, it's one along our lane. There are hedge oaks all through our local countryside. As I sat there that day, and now as I walk past hedge trees, I can see the reality of what the hedge and the trees provide. Nests for birds, leaves for caterpillars, which would be a good protein for the chicks when they hatch, nectar for pollinators, masses of different insects, which frogs, newts and toads would come up from the ponds and rivers to feed on. And then the autumn leaves. This is Hampstead wood. You could join the friends doing a super job for trees and wildlife. The drying leaves that shelter little creatures then decay into the soil. Now recycling, as they decay, recycling the nutrients, those precious essential elements that have been brought up to the roots by mycorrhizal fungi, thriving in and around and deep below hedges and trees. Masses of amazing interdependent life nurtured by trees and hedges. And we haven't even mentioned the amazing job the trees and hedges are doing, gushing oxygen into the atmosphere and guzzling carbon out of it, nor the job the tree and hedge are doing reducing soil erosion. And soil is another massive carbon thing. Was it only a week or two ago that I was out walking and then there had been no rain for ages and there was a cold, strong easterly wind? I was struck by just how exposed was the soil in the field we were walking alongside. I looked in the other direction and the expanse of vulnerable soil was even greater. See how the hedge between the two fields has been allowed to disintegrate. Where it was solid, it was doing a decent job, but we also need another hedge further down. Amazing job. That's what trees and hedges can do. So we come to enjoyment. The realization of enjoyment was again something of a light bulb moment. I dutifully went with my friends in the St. Albans Woodland Trust support group to help clear up after coppicing in Prior's Wood, which is in Aylts and Lawrence. I enjoyed myself. Here I am when we had been invited back a year later and photos were taken. You can see the new growth on the Corpus stools and the wigwams we had built around them to protect that new growth from herbivores. We'd also dragged brush to make dead hedging that would deter deer from getting anywhere near the new growth. I even held the reins of the horse hard to drag logs through the wood and bruise bracken before it took over. I wondered whether this work is in our genes, that our ancestors might have been doing such work for the last 5,000 years, and only the people happy doing it had survived to reproduce. There I am, smiley, smiley, enjoying myself. I've covered the three ways that I found myself fascinated by trees: delight, amazement, and enjoyment. But it certainly didn't occur to me to put on an exhibition about them. So how did that come about? It was like this. I suggested to Donato that we offer our new Museum Plus gallery a display of his stunning photographs of St. Albans trees. Here's one of Donato's photographs, ideal for a gallery, ideal for a museum gallery because so many of the trees had an historical connection. Ideal for St. Albans Museum because the photographs were all of trees in St. Albans and district. Good idea, we were told by the museum. Do fill in the proposal form. You'll find it on our website. Wow! By the time Donato and I had filled in how we were going to make the exhibition entertaining, specialist, sociable, provoking, and entrepreneurial, what events and activities we could have, and all sorts of other things, we realized we had more on our plate than we had bargained for. However, in thinking of possible activities and talks, I began to think of all the ways in which trees are of value. I had no difficulty with that. The list went on for pages with sections and subsections and sub-subsections, and on and on. By the time 2 years later, we were allocated a slot, September 2021 to January 2022, Donato was doing other things. And he suggested I have a word with Geraint John for advice. When I proudly told Geraint that I was going to put on an exhibition about the value of trees, he said, "We must work on the title." It was Mary Keneally, who looks after the civic society side of the tree sponsorship scheme, who suggested the brilliant title, The Remarkable World of Trees. So the value of trees became The Remarkable World of Trees. I think there must be an angel looking after this exhibition, because just at the right minute, along comes just the right person. One of these people is the wonderful Lee Wood of Ember Designs. He's created a design concept that encapsulates all we want the exhibition to convey. There's the planet, with the tree playing a crucial role in the center of it, providing fresh air, see the clear blue sky, and fresh clean water, the diversity of life living in the branches and on the bark, along the branches and down the trunk, and the amazing stuff going on at every level, from atmosphere to root tips and even further underground. Trees have a huge effect on soil health. Exhibition displays, talks from farmers, talks from researchers could tell us more about that. Can you help with that? Know the right person? Are you the right person? And the whole beautiful thing to represent our enjoyment in doing what we can to make sure the trees flourish. So my delight, amazement, and enjoyment morphed into the three things the exhibition will focus on: trees for well-being, trees for the planet, and what we can do for trees. We should have to focus. Note that food and other products from trees doesn't fit neatly. We hope to tie in with Highfield Trust and others for Orchard October, that perhaps you could do a workshop on ways to prepare tree fruits for the table. Perhaps you could do a talk about trees in construction, timber versus concrete. During the 4 long months of the exhibition, we plan to have themes. And perhaps in our willow weeks, we can cover not only willow for biofuel and what our National Willow Collection at Rothamsted is doing for the world, but also ask basket weavers to share their thoughts on willow replacing plastic and metal containers. And what about someone talking about the case for using wood as fuel in our controversial wood burners? I want to say a bit about well-being. We talk about well-being, but the exhibition will take it very seriously indeed. Mental health is a huge issue, and with your help, I think we can make a difference. I see it like this. Life for us, most of us, just goes ticking along. Then life every now and then becomes an uphill struggle. It can be no more than feeling unnerved by reaching adolescence. Do you share in your head the image that is in my head of a teenager in a hoodie staring at their feet? The trouble is that if somehow it's not nipped in the bud frighteningly quickly, it gets irremediable and we're over the edge. Now that looking down is a symptom, but also a cause. Looking down increases our despond. I learned that from a teacher of dyslexic children, Olive Hickmott. Olive told me that she gets her pupils to hold their books up in front of them rather than looking down to read. Because, Olive says, looking up makes the pupil feel more positive and able to do the job. So if we can give the gift to children and each other, whoops, I've gone too far, and to each other, the habit of looking up at trees, it will help protect our well-being. I was proud that the most common feedback I had about my book was that people said that they had become more aware of trees. I was pleased about that. Whether we're walking along the pavement, through the supermarket car park, or looking out at dusk, it is good if the trees prompt us to look up. There is nowhere in St. Albans and district that you cannot find street trees, at least within a block. People also said that they wish they had been taught which tree is which when they were a child. And this is something that the exhibition can do, help us with what to look for in trees. And that will help us get into the habit of looking up at trees and help us to share the habit with little ones, while little ones are little enough to engage and delight in squidging a birch catkin to see what's inside, feeling the bark and the stuff growing on it. In the exhibition, there will be lots for children to experience, to touch and see and enjoy and explore, and fun ways to remember what to look for: bark, branching, buds, flowers, leaf, fruit. So now picture that adolescent trudging along, looking at their feet, and they see some purple splodges on the pavement. And because someone had taken the trouble when they were little, the adolescent recognizes the splodge as discarded male ash flowers. And they look up to check, then wonder if there's a female ash nearby. And there we have not only the looking up, but distraction, thoughts being given a new turn, ones associated with pleasure, not to say delight. If not purple splodges, it could be helicopter seeds on the pavement, or autumn leaves, or oak tree twig end discards. Or perhaps later in life, they, you, me, are driving home from work, fed up, new manager, being passed over, clock's fallen back and it's dark, but we see branching ahead and think all knees and elbows, an oak, and continue to look to see if the branching of the next tree is perhaps curving out like a Highland dancer, which would mean it is probably an ash. And perhaps we are reminded of the feeling we have when looking up into the branches of a tree and we glimpse the sublime. So the exhibition will delight us with Donato's photographs, and I want to share some of the other ways in which trees affect our well-being. Woodland bathing, yoga in Heartwood, the ways in which trees have inspired music. Will you host a concert of music inspired by trees? And then there are ways in which trees have inspired fine art. In fact, I'm at my wit's end trying to work out how I can do justice to trees in art. But would you like to organize an associated event in a separate venue where art inspired by trees can be displayed well? Perhaps open studios focusing on tree-inspired art? What do you suggest? I can't let it go. The art's wonderful. Now, I want to touch on clean air and trees. Here is a view along our busy London road. Donato couldn't bear to have cars in his photographs of trees. He must have spent hours waiting his chance to have no cars in this photo. We know that many hours out of 24, fumes are belching out all along London Road. An arborist lives at Abbots Park, here behind the trees. She told me that when they have been working in that shelter belt of trees, they come out covered in grime, dusting particulates from their hair and arms and clothes. The trees protect residents from those particulates and noxious gases, and have been providing oxygen. Is there anyone up for doing a fun cartoon representation of belching traffic, mucky chaps emerging from the thicket, adult residents beyond, calmly breathing clean air, their children playing in fresh air? The point could be made really memorable. Any offers? We shall also show in the exhibition how you can go some way to achieve the same effect as a tree shelter belt. Come and see. Air filtering is one value of street trees. With the help of volunteers, Manchester and London have done comprehensive surveys of the value of their city's trees. The data makes it possible to model the effect on stormwater runoff and air cooling of, say, adding 10% to the tree canopy. Some of our citizens had a go at valuing a tree or two in St. Peter's Street. Could you influence a secondary school to value the trees in their locality? The data could be shared online. Perhaps we could get someone to coach us on valuing St. Albans trees. Or perhaps the council's done it already and could tell us about it. Here are all those St. Peter Street planes again. Multiply the value of each, just there in that one street. And who could put a value on these trees? You know who planted them? When? Why? Another of Donato's photographs to be seen at the exhibition. Talking of reality and touching and seeing, we have found a gigantic ash stump from which we shall take a slice. Now we can see the growth rings clearly. We shall label the year in which they were laid down so that you can find which ones were laid down the year you were born. The rings laid down through the Second World War, First World War, the Crimea. It gives us a sense of perspective. So we shall keep a good hand's depth of the bark. This is, you can see the top edge of it on the right-hand side of the screen, but I'm talking about the sides. So it will be there for you to feel. and experience the reality of the habitats that its grooves provide. We need a nuthatch hopping down head first, feasting on all the tiny creatures trying to hide in those grooves. You can imagine how much there will be about wildlife, air and water quality, soil conservation, and carbon sequestration. But we don't want to overwhelm the displays with words. Some of it, the meatier stuff, will be on the resources page of the exhibition website. There'll be QR codes on display panels so that you know where to find out more. In particular, we want to convey the crucial role trees and hedges play in soil health. Not to give too much away, the soil biosphere is inhabited by an amazing array of wildlife, trillions of organisms, all interdependent and all dependent directly or indirectly for energy and for carbon on the sugars in tree roots. Found out all about it through every level of the soil, from its surface right down to the underlying geology from which fungi leach those essential elements so that the tree roots can absorb them. And as promised, we shall demonstrate to a greater or lesser extent the ways that trees and hedges contribute to meeting every one of our UK priorities for nurturing our environment. So that leaves what you can do. Now here's a bit of fun. The Climate Change Committee report of 2019 gave us a recipe for the UK being carbon neutral by 2050. And one of the ingredients in the recipe is a 43% increase in hedgerows. That works out to be an extra 200,000 kilometres. We shall show in the exhibition what that means to the map of Great Britain. But I did start imagining what would have happened if I had planted a hedge in my back garden in Walton Street. And so had my neighbours and their neighbours. I imagined a continuous line of hedging up and down each garden, round the back of St Saviour's, down Sandpit Lane, up Battlefield, into Lancaster, round into Sandridge Road, past Bernadette School, down Boundary Road, up and down Upper Heath, Upper Culver, Warwick, and back to Walton, not crossing a road in all that stretch. Now that's what I call a wildlife corridor, a hedgehog highway. Not many kilometres. How many kilometres of hedge do you think we would contribute? Come to the exhibition to find out. So we're into what you can do, and I don't want to suggest you do something onerous. And I think some of you would find hedges, taking care of hedges and their upkeep, more than you want. So I asked Chris Pudsey to share her ideas on whether shrubs can do as good a job as hedges. Here Chris is. You might have seen her cycling between jobs. Chris has suggestions for uncomplicated ways of planting and managing a hedge or line of shrubs, and generally working less effortfully with nature rather than against it. Look out for her talk and book up. It's to be on the 14th of October. Details will be on the exhibition website. Oh, and talking of talks and what we can do, I want to know how financial institutions can reconcile their requirement for monetary return with so-called responsible investment, which so often will not have as good a monetary return. We do want that monetary return. It's what gives us our pensions. So I can't see how this works out in practice. But Jason Mitchell of Man Group has agreed to engage with the question for us. I gave him 11 ways in which hedges benefit sustainability and challenged him to come up with as many ways hedge funds do the same, hence the jokey title. But the more constructive question I would like Jason to answer is, what can we do to help financial institutions to invest in projects that foster sustainability. So make a note in your diary to see how Jason fares. The museum is to host that event, so sign up on its website or that of the exhibition. Do you remember priority 6 of our UK 25-year environment plan? Enhancing beauty, heritage, and engagement with the natural world. DEFRA gives this a higher priority than mitigating climate change. And the priorities were carefully set, informed by rigorous research. I spent a blissful day with my son helping Friends of the Nicky line. Enjoyable for Richard too, despite his expression of concentration and visible effects of effort. We opened up vistas across the valley and cut back foliage overhanging the track. The cuttings we stacked to form dead hedging, which will be brilliant for wildlife. So in the exhibition, there will be lots of illustrations of the work being done by local nature conservation groups, ones that know what they are doing when it comes to nurturing trees. That way visitors can see which would be enjoyable for them to join, or visitors might find it more enjoyable to donate to a national tree charity. And there'll be opportunities to do that too. So here is my invitation to you to share my delight, amazement, and enjoyment of trees, each morphed into trees for well-being, trees for the planet, and what we can do for trees. Do take a look at the lovely website that Digital Jen and her team have created for the exhibition. It's truly beautiful, a treat in its own right. So on www.worldoftrees.org.uk, you can find out about events and activities and sign up to be alerted to them. And at www.worldoftrees.org.uk, you can tell us the ways you would like to partner the exhibition, linking to a tree-related project of your own, contributing to the resource pages, working with children, helping prepare displays, giving a talk, hosting talks, leading walks, making sure that your native conservation group is on the list for visitors to join. And right now, do sign up for our photographic competition that heralds the exhibition and spread the word of the competition to all photographers. There's an Instagram category, or at www.worldoftrees.org.uk. And be sure to come to the Remarkable World of Trees exhibition. Bring your brothers and your sisters and your cousins and your aunts and friends, and get them to bring yourself as many youngsters and tots as you can find. What an opportunity St. Albans Museum Plus Gallery has given us. Together we can grab it and make the exhibition an exceptional event with a lasting legacy of making sure that trees flourish. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Emma.
Thanks so much, Kate. So I'm just going to stop sharing. So yeah, thank you so much to Kate for sharing with us, especially your personal journey with trees. It was very inspiring. We've got some lovely questions here from the audience that we're going to go through. If you have any more questions, people in the audience, please do just keep putting them in the Q&A, and we will I will read them out to Kate so that she can answer them. So we've got one question here from Pauline Ashley, I think referring to the beginning of your talk. On the walnut tree, some of the leaves look blighted. Are they?
Yes, but you see, you've got to look at it in a different way. The trees are providing food for those blights, and who knows what is feeding on the blight. So it's not always a case of being despondent about what's eating the leaves is probably a very interesting biodiversity story.
Fair enough, thank you. And a question from Alina Congreve. There is a trend at the moment for trees and exhibitions. I wondered what you thought about trees coming into museum gallery spaces for temporary exhibitions. And she shared a link, which unfortunately I'm not able to open at the moment. What do you think about trees becoming part of museum exhibitions?
Well, we've got a really particular problem, haven't we, with St Albans Museum plus Gallery, because it is in the old town hall, which is a grade 2 listed building. So the last thing we want is organic material coming in and jeopardizing any of the woodwork that is already existing in the building. So we're going to have a terrific problem with that, which has to go into a freezer for a week. And it is gigantic. It's more than 4 foot across. And it's going to be tricky even to take a slice out of it. But we found a freezer that will take the 2 halves. But I wonder whether that was really what the questioner was asking about, or were you saying there are just too many exhibitions about trees? We certainly can't. We would love to bring in, whole trees, whole trunks and stuff, but we're going to have to be really imaginative and creative and out of. Want to help?
That's great. I guess you could take the view, is it strange to ask people to learn, to feel a sense of enjoyment and wonder of trees inside? Is it counter to ask them to come inside to develop that wonder and enjoyment?
Yeah, it's much better to go outside. Much better, of course it is. But we hope that by coming to the exhibition, people will be inspired. And it's like me, once the penny drops and you have cottoned on to the amazement of trees, it makes you look differently when you get outside. That's the point.
Fair enough, that makes sense. A lovely question here from Joanne. Do you know which is the most, oh, sorry, no, that wasn't not from Joanne. What is your favourite tree?
Well, I ought to say a native tree, because it's native trees that we need so badly, because they have evolved with all the possible pests, and they are particularly adapted to our climate. And it's really important that everything is happening in synchronization, which can only come with evolution. But I must confess that one of my very most favorite trees is the dawn redwood. And there's one in Harpenden in Leighton Green that is a lovely shape, and do go up close. The leaves are just so pretty and delicate and lovely colours. And of course in the autumn, it's pink and rosy pink, lovely, like the
Beautiful.
dawn.
Wonderful, thank you. Another question from Joanne Brown. Which tree do you think would work best in a medium-sized garden?
Well, that's one of the things that I want people to address, because there is so much to consider, isn't there? So if I get somebody to come and talk about how to select trees, would that suit? We'll have another event, shall we?
Also, if anyone in the talk today has some answers for this, please do put it in the chat. If you think that you might know the answer as to what is a good tree for someone's small medium garden, do put it in the chat, because I'm unfortunately by no means an expert. Oh, and Joanne also asked, do you know which is the most common tree in our area?
It used to be a hornbeam, Langley Wood and all the many other woodlands around us, where there are lots and lots and lots of trees all together. The hornbeam and a batchwood, of course, and bricketwood everywhere round about us, because the hornbeam was Hertfordshire gold, it was Corpus, routinely, steadily, every so many years, made into charcoal, which has a very high heat and was sold to the bakers of London. They say that the London's bread was baked on Hertfordshire hornbeam. And those trees are still there. They haven't been coppiced in most of the woodlands, and they're just a lot of them. Lovely, lovely. And there is a beautiful one in Vintry Gardens, so that you can all see it, and in Harpenden on Hatching Green.
Thank you, that's fascinating. Another question from Alina. Will there be any photographic events or workshops associated with the exhibition? This could be a good way to engage visitors in their teens and 20s, starting with something they are already interested in, who don't normally go near city museums from when they are at primary school to when they have their own young children. Well, I can help to answer this. I've been working very closely with Kate to arrange all sorts of different events for her exhibition. We're going to have workshops for children and adults and talks and all different kinds of things going on, and tours and walks. So there's certainly going to be something for everyone. So we would definitely like to engage all different kinds of.
Can I mention again that we have a photographic competition launched now, you can sign up for, and the prize for winners in the different categories are a masterclass with Donato Cinicolo on a project of your choosing. About so I mean, you might choose not to want to photograph trees, but any tree photographs that you have, please submit them for the photographic competition, and they will go into the 12 of them will go into the calendar, the 2022 calendar, to be sold at the museum.
Fantastic, that sounds wonderful. Alina clarifies her previous question was this thing of putting live trees into art spaces I'm in two minds about. I don't think we're going to be putting any live trees into the exhibition, is that right?
No, not allowed.
Afraid not. So Joanna asks, we followed the tree trail from the Sustfest booklet. Very interesting. Have you walked the trail?
Well, the way in which I got in touch with the wonderful Lee Wood, who's done super design concepts and is going to be responsible for the artwork for the displays and installation, is that he contacted me to say, would it be all right if he used my tree trail? And made it into a Sustfest one. And of course it incorporates the abbey, the cathedral tree trail, which I was also involved with. And I'm going to be doing that with the brownies, the cathedral brownies, on Friday.
Oh, that's lovely.
I was doing it today. So yes, it's super, isn't it? And yes, most of the wording from the rest of it was my original stuff.
Very nice. And we're going to be, Kate is going to be doing a heritage tree walk as part of the exhibition for Heritage Open Day later this year. So that should be great fun. If you enjoyed that, you can get in person with Kate later this year. A lovely comment more from Sarah Lom from the Tree Council, saying how much she found, how inspirational she found her presentation, and how she wants to help through their schools program and all other different kinds of links. So thank you so much for that, Sarah.
Wow, that's quite an accolade. Thank you, Sarah.
Indeed. Jenny says, I got a tree recognition badge from Scouts. Do they still do this? And is this where to start with education about trees?
I would love to help Scout leaders to do tree recognition stuff. And I do know that the Harpenden Scouts do a tree badge. I don't know that it's tree recognition, but it's certainly a tree badge. And I know that happens each year. Yeah, definitely. But if you, on the website, if you just say that you're interested, we can talk and make a plan.
Great. So if you know anyone who's doing that kind of education, I'm sure Kate would love to get involved. D&M ask, is it true that coppice trees live forever? I note in old woodland trees are no longer coppiced.
Yeah, it certainly extends their life. And once when I went to Kew on a guided walk around the trees, they were saying that in the Atlantic period, about 4,000 years ago, the temperature was about 4 degrees Fahrenheit higher for some thousands of years. And in that time, the pollen counts show that there were about 30% of the woodland in the Kent area was lime, small leaf lime, and it no longer is at that kind of level. And they think that the limes that we have now have survived from being cut from limes that were around then, because as the climate cooled, the limes could no longer set viable seed. So one of the positive thoughts of climate change is that global warming is that the limes have started to set viable seed. So it's all really interesting, isn't it? But I don't know about forever. What do you think? Certainly it increases their lifespan, and as does pollarding.
Great. Oh, and just one last comment that someone mentioned that because you talked about how much you enjoyed the redwoods, and that there are some dawn redwoods also in Clarence and Highfield Parks in St Albans.
Yes, and Verulamium Park. Yes,
very nice. Wonderful. Well, I think that brings us to a close with all of our questions. So we're going to say thank you so much to Kate for your wonderful presentation, so inspiring and really getting us excited for the exhibition opening later this year. I hope everyone on this call is gonna get involved. I'm just going to share my screen just to let you know a little bit about what's going on at the museum at the moment. So hopefully, as you know, we opened again to the public on the 17th, so just a week ago, and we've got lots of really exciting exhibitions on for you to come and see at St Albans Museum and Gallery. You've got reopening after being closed for a while, Cabaret Mechanical Marvels, which is a lovely exhibition of kind of moving sculptures that you can come and have a look at, which are really good fun. We've got the Lockdown Life in St Albans that brings together more than a dozen local community groups with all of the fascinating creative things that they've been doing during lockdown, and that's also part of SustFest fitting into the wellbeing category, because there's all sorts of things, reflections on that. We've also got Behind the Mask, an exhibition that is celebrating the 40th anniversary of Trestle Theatre Company, which has also been also fascinating, and also a photography exhibition by local photographer Nick Madge, who's been taking photographs of people during coronavirus and reflecting on their experiences. But also I just wanted to draw your attention to some of the things that are coming up. We have an outdoor performance, a free outdoor performance from Trestle Theatre, where some of the young people that are working with Trestle Theatre are going to be doing a mask performance on the street on the 1st of June. Do come by and see what they've been up to, and you can pop into the museum while you're there as well and have a look at all those exhibitions that I was mentioning. And also, as part of SustFest, we've got a photography competition going on as well as Kate's one. There's another photography competition going on that you can contribute to now, which will later on be exhibited in the museum and gallery in the St Albans On Demand section. So all sorts of ways that you can get involved, come and find out things, come and learn. So please do come along. I see that a couple more people may put some comments in, and I see lots of people saying thank you and how much they're looking forward to the exhibition. So we're very much looking forward to hosting you all there soon. We're going to wrap up now because we've come to the end of our talk. But again, thank you so much to Kate. Thank you everyone for coming. After this, you're going to be invited to do a survey. If you could just share with us about how you found this evening, and so that we can find out about what we should do for our future events. And thank you everyone, and hope you have a good evening. Bye everyone.
Bye.